Cotton Mather, a prominent Puritan minister, historian and theologian in late 17th and early 18th century Massachusetts, is often associated with the infamous Salem witchcraft trials of 1692. As a prolific writer and a leading figure in the New England Church, his influence on both the intellectual and spiritual life of the Massachusetts Bay Colony was immense. Mather's role in the witch trials, however, has been a matter of ongoing historical debate. Some argue that he was a key instigator of the trials, contributing to the fervor that led to the tragic execution of 20 people, while others believe that Mather has been unfairly blamed for actions he did not directly control. Born in 1663 to Increase Mather, a prominent Puritan minister and president of Harvard College, Cotton Mather grew up steeped in religious education and Puritan theology. He was a prodigious scholar, graduating from Harvard at the age of 15 and subsequently becoming a leading voice in the New England religious community. His writings reveal his deep commitment to the Puritan worldview, which held that the battle between God and Satan was being played out on earth, particularly in the form of witchcraft and other manifestations of the devil's influence. Mather's theological outlook, shaped by his Puritan upbringing, played a crucial role in how he viewed events such as the Salem witch trials. Like many of his contemporaries, he believed in the existence of witches and that they were agents of Satan, sent to undermine the Christian community. Witchcraft, for Mather and other Puritan leaders, was not a superstitious relic of medieval Europe, but a real and present danger. His treatise, Memorable Providences, relating to witchcrafts and possessions, 1689, published a few years before the Salem witch trials, reflects his deep belief in witchcraft as a genuine threat. The book detailed the case of a supposed demonic possession of a Boston family, fueling existing fears of the devil's influence in the colony. The Salem witch trials took place in 1692 in a climate of fear, religious fervor, and social instability. Salem, like much of Massachusetts Bay, was experiencing tension due to ongoing conflicts with Native American tribes, economic hardship and political uncertainty following the revocation of its original charter by England. This context of fear and instability likely contributed to the hysteria surrounding the accusations of witchcraft. In early 1692, several young girls in Salem village began exhibiting strange behaviors, such as fits and screaming, which they attributed to being bewitched by local women. As the number of accusations grew, local magistrates convened a special court to hear the cases. Spectral evidence, or testimony that the spirit of the accused had appeared in visions or dreams, was frequently used in the trials, making it almost impossible for the accused to defend themselves. Over the course of the trials, more than 200 people were accused, 30 were convicted, and 20 were executed, most by hanging. While Cotton Mather was not a judge or official during the Salem witch trials, his influence on the proceedings is undeniable. His writings, sermons, and personal correspondence contributed to the intellectual climate that allowed the trials to occur. Mather's aforementioned book, Memorable Providences, was widely read in Massachusetts and undoubtedly shaped public opinion on the existence and danger of witchcraft. Additionally, Mather corresponded with judges involved in the trials, including Samuel Sewall and William Stoughton, offering both encouragement and caution in equal measure. His position in the community as a religious leader and his belief in witchcraft likely emboldened some of the magistrates to pursue the cases. One of Mather's most controversial actions during the trials was his defense of the use of spectral evidence, which allowed accusers to testify that they had seen the spirits of the accused performing witchcraft. Mather believed that such evidence, while not conclusive on its own, could be used to corroborate other forms of testimony. This stance lent credibility to a form of evidence that many historians now view as highly unreliable. However, Mather also urged caution, writing in his Wonders of the Invisible World that the judges should be wary of relying too heavily on spectral evidence, and that innocent people should not be condemned based on such testimony alone. Despite his cautionary notes, Mather never publicly denounced the trials while they were ongoing, and he continued to defend the judges' actions after the fact. In Wonders of the Invisible World, 1693, published shortly after the trials ended, Mather praised the judges for their care and pains in dealing with the witchcraft crisis, even as he acknowledged that some mistakes may have been made. This defense of the trials has been one of the main reasons Mather has been blamed for the tragedies of Salem. The question of whether Cotton Mather has been fairly or unfairly blamed for the Salem witch trials is complex and requires careful consideration of both his actions and the broader context in which the trials took place. On one hand, Mather's writings and beliefs undoubtedly contributed to the environment of fear and suspicion that allowed the trials to happen. His promotion of the idea that witches were an immediate and real threat to the Puritan community, as well as his defense of spectral evidence, gave moral and intellectual support to the prosecution of suspected witches. In this sense, it is not entirely unfair to suggest that Mather bears some responsibility for the trials. On the other hand, Mather was not directly involved in the trials as a judge or prosecutor, and there is evidence that he was uncomfortable with some of the excesses of the trials. His repeated calls for caution, though not as forceful as modern readers might wish, suggest that he was aware of the potential for injustice. Moreover, Mather was not the only influential figure in Massachusetts who believed in the reality of witchcraft. Many other ministers, judges, and public officials shared his views. The blame for the Salem witch trials, therefore, cannot rest on Mather's shoulders alone. The trials were the result of a complex interplay of social, political, and religious factors, and while Mather's influence was significant, it was not decisive. In the years following the trials, Mather's reputation suffered as the public became increasingly critical of the witch hunt. His association with the trials, particularly his defense of the judges, damaged his standing, and he was often scapegoated as one of the main culprits behind the tragedy. It is worth noting, however, that other figures, such as Judge Samuel Sewall, publicly repented for their roles in the trials, whereas Mather never issued a formal apology, which may explain why he continues to be blamed more than some of his contemporaries. Cotton Mather's role in the Salem witch trials remains a subject of debate among historians. While his writings and sermons certainly contributed to the intellectual climate that allowed the trials to happen, and his defense of spectral evidence was problematic, it is overly simplistic to place the blame for the trials solely on him. Mather was one figure among many who believed in the existence of witches and the need to root them out, and his actions, while influential, were not decisive in the tragic outcome of the trials. Thus, while Mather's legacy is understandably tarnished by his association with Salem, it is also clear that he has been somewhat unfairly blamed for events that were the product of much broader forces at play in Puritan New England.